First of all, how do I know that this is a fundamental theorem of calculus problem? Well, in general, if I'm looking at an integral with respect to t, and these bounds have something with x's in them, that should be a signal that we should be thinking about the fundamental theorem of calculus. If we're thinking about the fundamental theorem of calculus, then the only way that I know of to change this integral into something that only has x's in it is to think about taking the derivative of the integral. So I'm going to start by taking the derivative of both sides. If I take the derivative over here, then our fundamental theorem of calculus says that what we're going to end up with is f of x squared times chain rule 2x minus f of 0 times chain rule derivative of 0. Since the derivative of 0, or 0 prime, is 0, that whole piece goes away. Now on the right-hand side, if we're going to take the derivative, we need to remember to do the product rule. And that was true about the problem from Kuba's practice exam as well. We needed to do a product rule when applying fundamental theorem of calculus on that one. So here, my product rule is going to look like the derivative of x is equal to 1. And then I'll have cosine of pi x plus x times the derivative of cosine of pi x. Well, the derivative of cosine is negative sine, and that pi x, if we're remembering chain rule on that, will end up with a pi. So I'm going to have x times negative pi sine of pi x. To clean this up and get rid of that 0, we're now sitting at f of x squared times 2x is equal to cosine of pi x minus pi times x times sine of pi x. Now this next step requires a little bit of cleverness. We were asked to find f of 4. So if I'm looking at this piece, that tells me that the x value we need to plug in is 2, because 2 squared is going to give me 4. Now, you might be thinking, well, how do we know not to plug in negative 2? And I'll be honest, I don't have a good answer for that, other than to say, since we were starting at 0, I'm thinking we should probably go 0 to positive 2. It also might not matter in the end, but 2 was the immediate number that I saw that we could plug in. So if I plug in x equals 2, then this would become f of 4 times 4 is equal to cosine of 2 pi minus pi times 2 times sine of 2 pi. Well, cosine of 2 pi, that's equal to 1. And sine of 2 pi is 0. Which means that f of 4 must be equal to 1/4. Or if we really wanted to cover our bases and say, well, if we plugged in negative 2 for x, that would also make that f of 4. Well, if we plugged in negative 2 everywhere, then instead of being a 4 here, that would be a negative 4. And cosine of negative 2 pi is also still 1, which means if we had plugged in x equals negative 2, that would have led us to f of 4 was equal to negative 1 over 4. So for the most complete answer, I would say the f of 4 is plus or minus 1/4.